My dangest. We will be on there later tonight. So, tonight, I do want to try a little something different. We got some folks around you. There's going to be some interaction, even though we've had some interaction. So, tonight, I want to talk about embracing God in the valley. Really easy setup, right? Go straight in. Go straight in. So, tonight, you got two questions. We're going to be in 1 Kings 19. There's two questions in front of you. We're going to pause to answer those questions with the folks around you. Take about 5 or 10 minutes. We're going to have two questions. We're going to make it happen. Now, the thing I didn't get to do, don't get mad at me, I ran out of time. I didn't get to put it on Bible version, the YouVersion Bible app. I'm sorry. I just ran out of time with everything that's happening. Hopefully we can get that going where I have some assist. Story of my life, Jim. It's a long line. I'm going to pull that out. So, that being said, I didn't get on there, but it's not going to be too bad. You're going to know where I'm going with this. It's going to be 1 Kings 19. It's going to be exciting. I believe it's going to be freeing, but here's the thing. We got to be real when we do it. So like I said, tonight's going to be an opportunity to be real. We're going to be in 1 Kings 19, verses 1 through 18, if I remember correctly, and if that's what you got down. So we're going to start right there. If you don't have your Bible, I'm sorry. We'll be able to go in there, and I'll try to make sure we have that YouVersion for you later. So here we are. Let me paint the picture. You know I'm going to talk about somebody in the valley. If there's anybody I'm going to talk about in the Old Testament, if it's not Joshua, it's probably going to be Elijah or Elisha. Those are my guys. And Elijah has just come off of the mountaintop. He has just sacrificed. I don't know if you remember this story. Like, he killed all the prophets to Baal. Remember when he dug the trench and the fire came down and he kills all the prophets of Baal? I see some yeses, maybe. Awesome. See, that's what sells tickets. Why don't we have Bible movies like that? Because that's something like, that's Braveheart-ish. People would pay money to go to that. Like, seriously. So, he's just come off this mountaintop. And so you would think like he's just started, like, it's like he's just started his ministry. He's made a splash. Everybody's excited. Like, Elijah is ready to go. Everybody loves him. He's on this mountaintop experience. People have seen God's hand on him. They've seen God come down and consume this trench with fire. And then he goes and slays everybody. It has all the makings of a good German movie. But anyway, really, it has all the makings of a good movie. And so you would think he would be excited, filled with the Spirit, ready to go, jacked up, like ready to go take on the world, right? Because he's just experienced God on this mountaintop. But it starts this way in 1 Kings 19. It says this. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, and how to kill all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah. So she texted him, whatever it is, or sent him a Facebook message that, if you don't have Messenger, you'll read 12 days later. I mean me, because I don't. I'll see it when I go online. So she sends him a message to say this. May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. So she's talking about the prophets. She's telling Elijah, I'm going to kill you the way that you killed these prophets, because Jezebel is who were leading them to false gods and idols, right? Like Jezebel, remember the story, like, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but all of our parents would say that word, Jezebel, that Jezebel. Like, right, like, you say that, that's where they get that from. They're talking about Jezebel here in the Bible. So she's saying she's going to kill Elijah, even if God is mad at her. So Elijah just saw God consume a trench. He dug a trench, consumed water with fire, kills all these prophets, and so it's like the land is cleansed and it's ready to go. And this one woman says she's going to kill him. He was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, we're going to talk about this in a second, this is where the battle is going to make sense. He left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. Ever been there? Hey, I've been there. If I'm completely honest, I've been there. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. So before we finish, we're going to wrap up at verse 8 before we have our first question. And I want to tell you this. So let me tell you, this is where the valley comes in. So there are some valleys in the Bible that are really, really cool, okay? We talked about, if you happen to see Sunday, we talked about some. We didn't get into all of them. But the valley of Beersheba is important. Okay, so let me tell you about this valley of Beersheba. So, Beersheba is the place where Abraham dug the wells. He dug 7 wells. It's called the Valley of 7 or the Valley of the Oath. So if you ever go and look that up, if you want to Google that, whatever it is it looks like, Beersheba is called that. So that's in between him and this place called Horeb, this mount called Horeb. Now, here we are. He goes into the valley. He's on his way to Mount Horeb, okay? So let me tell you about Mount Horeb. So the Valley of Beersheba is called the Valley of the Oath. It's where Abraham dug the wells. We're going to finish in that here in just a minute. Abraham dug these wells, 7 wells to be exact. And all throughout the Old Testament, these wells, these people came back to them. Matter of fact, Jacob came back and reopened the wells. If you want to see where I'm going with this in just a little bit. So Jacob's well was there. If you know, you know. So Jacob's well was found inside this Valley of Beersheba. Mount Horeb is disputed, but it's the place where a lot of folks would say is Mount Sinai, even though they're 2 different mountains. But it's important. Mount Horeb means Mount of Light. So anytime Moses would go to talk to God, he would go to Mount Horeb a lot of times. That's where the tabernacle was set up. He'd go inside of it, and he would glow afterwards, like a veil, all this crazy good stuff. So Elijah is coming down a mountaintop. He's in the Valley of Promise, or the Valley of Oath, the Valley of Sept, the Valley of Completion, in this crazy valley, and he's trying to run to go to light. So he's trying to run through the valley to somehow get closer to God. And in the moment, he encounters God and says, I've had enough, kill me. Ever been there? Called to do something really crazy? Maybe you're invested in friends, and you're hoping that they get to meet Jesus, or their marriages is falling apart, and you're trying to help them there, and all of a sudden it's in the middle of it, and you just hear they're saying, kill this marriage, I'm done with it, right? Like, something like that. That's where Elijah is. He's saying, God, I've had enough. I'm no better than my ancestors. It's just a really crazy place to be. So, we were praying earlier, and we were laughing about prayer, but here's what I want to tell you before we continue on. So, Valley of Beersheba, Valley of Seven, Valley of Oath, on the way to the mountain of light. Elijah in his prayer here is not hiding anything. You know, so many times we want our prayer to be like this big, grandiose thing, right? It needs to be reverent, absolutely. I know sometimes I get off the rails, but I'm just real with God because he already knows my heart. He already knows what I need before I ask him. And Elijah here is saying, God, like, I don't want Jezebel to take my life. I would rather you take my life. Like, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this. And all at once is one of my favorite things. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. So he laid under the bush inside of the Valley of Seven, inside of the Valley of the Oath, and he fell asleep. So he rested. Just remember that. He rested. All at once an angel touched him, said, get up and eat. I want to slap that fool. I was asleep, right? He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over coals, hot coals. Make sure you know that, hot coals. Isaiah talks about those hot coals, so does Jeremiah. And a jar of water. He ate and drank, then he lay down again. You probably think Elijah's lazy, right? It's like this fool just got up to eat breakfast and went back to bed. This is a crazy day, right? Like, what a bum. No wonder, right? Like, you would think that. Some of us would judge him for that, right? So then the angel of the Lord came back a second. So he hit the snooze button, got him some nibbles, went back to sleep during the snooze. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. So he got up, he ate and drank, strengthened by the food. I love this. He traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. So before we go to verse 9, remember Jesus goes in the wilderness 40 days and 40 nights? That's why when he was on earth, people thought he was the greater Elijah, or he was Elijah reincarnated. He's going into these things, right? So he's in this valley. He's in the wilderness. The angel says, get up, eat your food. And you would think finally he's strengthened because he's experienced an angel, right? Like, he didn't even cook this meal, but he got to eat it. It was like laying right there. Like, he was ready to go. He didn't even cook it. He ate it, hit the snooze button. Angel kicks him up, gets up. He says, be strengthened and go. And so Elijah is so strengthened he can go 40 days and 40 nights without eating, probably, inside of this wilderness. So you would think, man, he's excited. But where does he go? There he went into a cave and spent the night. He goes into this cave. So the question I have before we take our first break and answer our first question is, so many times when we're in the valley, I wonder if we remember God's faithfulness in the past. Elijah literally just left a mountaintop where God did something incredible. Fire came down, consumed water, dug a trench. He rid the people of the false idol themselves. Like, he got rid of all these people who like, it was like a reset. Like, he got to hit the reset button. And he was the guy leading it. Like, wouldn't that be cool? You got to hit the reset button, Wouldn't you be like a mountaintop ready to go, God? Like, I've got this, and all of a sudden this one person says, I'm going to kill you and your ministry and everything you're doing. And he runs, scared. So much so, he's so overwhelmed by it, he says, God, just kill me. I've had enough, just kill me. Just kill me. And God's like, I'm not done with you. Here's some bread and some water. You're inside the valley of the oath I made to Abraham that said, I will make many great nations out of him. You're the place where he dug the 7 wells. This is the valley of completion, the valley of Beersheba. You're inside of this place. You don't even realize it, but you're inside of my promise. You're trying to run from me, but you're actually getting closer to me. And so I wonder how many times in my life where I feel like I'm in that valley, like Elijah. And I'm just like, this sucks. And God gives me what I need. Remember, he gave the Israelites manna in the Exodus. He gives him the bread and water he needs. And I'm just like, come on, not yet, Jesus. Like, I don't feel like doing it. I'm not ready to do it yet. I hit the snooze button. The angel has to come slap me in the face. Says, get up, straighten yourself. Go 40 days and 40 nights in this wilderness. That's even darker than you've ever been in. That's even crazier than you've ever been in. So that you can get to the mountain of God to experience life like never before. And so I wonder, as we're in this valley, if we would see God's faithfulness. So the first question, as you see, is this. How has the faithfulness of God in your past strengthened your faith today? Because Elijah had to have faith. He had what he needed to go 40 days and 40 nights, right? Like, he just ate one meal. Power to him. Awesome guy. He just saw God do something awesome. He ran from this person because they said they were going to kill him. And yet at the same time, he sustains a 40-day journey, 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness to get to the mountain of God. So my question is, as we take just a minute, how has the faithfulness of God in your past strengthened your faith today? I'm going to hit pause on this, and then everybody can jump back in on it. Let's see what happens. Okay, here we go. All right, we got to continue the story. Thank y'all for sharing. That's awesome. Hopefully it's going to start speaking, and hopefully you can see where we're going here. If not, it's going to make sense here in a minute. So, it's going to continue on. Verse 9 continues on. So we stopped at 9a. 9b, if you will, says this. And the word of the Lord came to him. You ever had God just come to you and say, what are you doing here, Elijah? He was in the middle of this cave. God's already strengthened him. Like, he's Olympic champion. Like, seriously. He's gone 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. He's in the middle of this valley. He's already slayed all these prophets. Like, if you wanted followers, this is who you wanted. Like, Elijah's got them all. Like, they're all following God. Like, he's just thinking there's nobody else that's not following God, right? Like, this is crazy, right? So he's in this cave hiding for his life. He replied, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. So just remember this. He's talking to God. He talks to God in third person. I love this. The Israelites, of which Elijah is one, have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. And this is where we can all be in that valley with what we've all just shared. I'm the only one left. Now they're trying to kill me too. We're in the middle of this valley. Even though we're looking at God's past faithfulness, I can promise you, on the way to see and experience God in a new way, we all feel like we're the only one. I feel like I'm the only one when I'm there at times. I mean, if I'm completely real, and I'll tell God I'm the only one, and then God has his way of trying to straighten me out, and it's funny. But in the middle of that valley, we can feel that way. And he says, hey, I'm the last one left, God. Isn't that pride sometimes? Doesn't that pride kill us? Like, that's it, right? I'm the last one left. And now these fools are trying to kill me too. The Lord said, go out, stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for he is about to pass by. So even God answers in third person. Like, he says, this is the best thing in the world. He says, hey, get your butt out of the cave, put some faith into those steps that you've been taking, and I'm about to pass by on the mountain. So he goes through the valley of the oath, or if you want to call it the valley of promise, the valley of 7, of completion, goes 40 days and 40 nights. God says, hey, I want to meet you on this mountain. And this is what I love. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart, shattered the rocks before the Lord. Like, that's God speaking, right? It's going to be this big thing. Big, awesome, powerful, like, explosions, monster jam. Like, right? Like, that's it. But what does it say? But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake. So think about this. I'm Elijah. I've taken steps out, and I'm like, I know I prayed for you to kill me, but now all of a sudden I got a big wind. So a tsunami, whatever, not a tsunami, whatever you want, a tornado comes. Now there's an earthquake, and you would think, oh, God's going to speak in this earthquake, right? God's going to speak in this earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. So like, the next thing I'm looking for is this one. Now I'm going to be real, so I'm going to try not to defile the word of God, but you're going to laugh. Just get ready. After the earthquake came a fire. Oh, Godzilla! No, I'm just kidding. Like, right? Like, wouldn't that be it? Godzilla's there. Like, wouldn't that be it? You'd be so scared. Like, you've got an earthquake, you've had wind and fire in the breath, right? Like, you would think God's going to talk in the fire like he talked to Moses in the burning bush. It says Elijah lay down at a burning. He was there. He was fed by an angel. God calls him on the mountaintop. So how did God just show up by fire before, right? Like he dug a trench. He licked up the water through fire, right? He took all the water out. So Elijah's probably thinking, all right, God's got me this time. He's going to talk in the fire. But no, after the fire came, there was a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled the cloak over his face. I remember when Moses went on Mount Horeb, he veiled his face. The people knew he had talked to God because he was glowing. He put his cloak over his face. He went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. And the voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I've been the same thing." He just kept going back. He's pleading the fifth. Let's be real. "I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left. And now they are trying to kill me too." Then the Lord drops the bomb on him. The Lord says to him, "Go back the way you came. Go through the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. Also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel. And anoint Elisha, my dude, son of Shaphat, from Abel, Mehaloah, to succeed you as the prophet. Jehu will put to death anyone who escapes the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will put to death any who escape the sword of Jehu." So look, he's got two lines of defense. He's got Elisha and Jehu with him. God not only resourced him with food, he resourced him with people in the midst of the valley as he was on this mountain. And he's saying this, because Elijah says this. This is what I love about verse 18. What we have to remember so many times in our walk when we're in the valley is this. Remember Elijah said, "I'm the only one left and they're trying to kill me." Mm-hmm. This is where God just he takes the glove off and slaps him across the face. "Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, and whose mouths have not kissed him." So when Elijah thought he was the only one left, there were 7,000 more just like him. Mm. And God sent him two people to help him in his defense in the midst of the valley. So through his faithfulness. So the reason I wanted to talk about that valley, and particularly as we get ready to be done here in just a minute, is the valley of Beersheba is what? The valley of seven, or the valley of oaths, right? So the valley of God's promise. So what did I say we're in? There were 7 something dug there. 7 wells, right? From Abraham, right? So all throughout the Old Testament, these wells are important because, see, there's a moment in time where there's a guy who wrestled with God. His name's Jacob, descendant of Abraham, and he opens that well back up. We see this same valley show up in the New Testament at Jacob's well, and a woman sitting there looking for Jesus. In this valley, the valley of promise, the valley of the oath, the valley of Sept, this prostitute sitting there, in the middle of the day, not a prostitute, an adulterer, sitting there. She encounters Jesus, right? So when we see it in the New Testament, this valley show up. And yet God still does something. And he reminds, as Jesus did, "Hey, has anybody told you not to sin? Go and do it no more." I know you think there's no more like you, but there are. Because the only one that's like me is me, in the middle of this valley. So whatever valley we're walking through, maybe we're walking through this valley of Beersheba where we don't understand. We're actually walking deeper into God's promise through the valley to experience him on a mountain than we were anywhere else. But after we experience him, he might send us straight through the valley in the desert again. And I wonder how many times we forget his faithfulness in the past. But we have the gumption and the faith to step back into that valley and know that it has purpose. Because if Elijah didn't step into that valley, I can't promise you those wells would still be there. yes, God would have a plan, and yes, Jacob's well would be there. But Jacob's well just keeps showing up where Jesus says, hey, if you really knew who you were talking to, you would know that I have life and life everlasting. But she and Elisha could only experience it in the valley. Wasn't on the mountain where he kills all these prophets. Which, let's be real, that's straight Braveheart, guys. Like, that's awesome. And then he says, hey, I'm going to give you 2 more. That's going to help you, Jehu and Elisha. That's some Star Wars stuff. That's what it sounds like right there. Seriously. Like, you got them. They got your back. And when you think you're the only one, there's 7,000 more just like you. So my question is, will you reach out to him? My question is, will you trust that he's given you enough to do what he's called you to do? And that he has multiple lines of defense around you. Because even when one defense fails, he's got another. Because it's already done. So my second question is, and we'll be done, is this. How are you embracing God in the middle of a difficult situation? Or how would you like to embrace him? So how are you being like Elijah? Are you embracing him where he's got to be hardcore? Or are you embracing him like where the angel was able to provide him what he needed? Because in the end, you are not alone. If I could sing, I'd be singing that song to you. But you are not alone. So with maybe the folks around you, take just a minute to answer that question, because I know right now if you're watching on the video, you can't read the question is one more time. How are you embracing God in the middle of a difficult situation? Or how would you like to embrace him?